Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Global Forbidden Land. Only I contract Konoha Genin. Chapter 81. Let's go together. Su Yu's faint voice resounded. Immediately, streaks of yellow lightning emerged, like arcs of lightning, jumping on Su Yu's body. That set of white battle suits had already been damaged in the previous battle with the Monster King Dashi. The fine upper body was exposed. The arcs rotated over the muscles. On Tornado's face, although there was some disdain, there was still a faint green energy, which began to surface on Tornado's body. Directly manipulate the gravity, and bless it on the body of the big snake. Dragon Wan yelled at Su Yu. Quick, I control the gravity around him, restrict him, you take the opportunity to attack his weakness. Su Yu hesitated for a moment, then said with a strange expression. You have been fighting with him for so long just now. Don't you know that the eccentric king snake has no weaknesses? 760. The complexion of the tornado began to become a bit stiff little by little. Ah, is it? Tornado didn't pay attention to these things. After all, he is a player with superpowers. For Tornado, anything can be solved by relying on superpowers. If you can't solve it, then your superpower is not enough. As for the enemy's weakness, it really wasn't taken into account by Tornado. All of a sudden, it became a little embarrassing. It's not important, just hit it, Tornado said with a bit of anger. Su Yu scratched his head and smiled helplessly. Immediately, the figure of the whole person burst out directly. Like a yellow lightning bolt. The eyes of the weirdo King Dashi shone with a scarlet light. Suddenly, there was a terrifying force. The tentacles all over his body, like a violent storm, swept out. Crazy, it burst out at the yellow lightning that Su Yu transformed into. However, even with such terrifying power, if the speed cannot keep up, it is something without the slightest method. Su Yu's speed surpassed 5 times the speed of sound. In addition, the body of the Monster King Dashi was affected by the anti-gravity of the tornado. Not only the body was restricted, but even the brain seemed to become extremely slow. Su Yu is like a fish swimming in the water, swaying his body gently. Above the fist, faint blue energy, like flowing water, gently covered Su Yu's fist. Flowing water breaking rock fist. The bombardment abruptly landed on the body of the weirdo King Dashi. The big snake's huge body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Although, the weirdo king snake doesn't have any weaknesses. But as long as the strength exceeds the defense power of the Monster King Serpent, it can cause extremely terrifying injuries to the Monster King Serpent. You must know that although the ability of the Monster Wong Dash is the #1 existence in the entire Monster Association. However, in terms of defensive power, the Monster King Snake, even the Elder Centipede can't match. In the original book, even the Centipede Elder can resist Saitama's continuous normal punches. But Orochi, as the most powerful monster, was beaten half to death by Saitama. From this point alone, it can be found that although the Monster King does not have any weaknesses, his defense is still relatively poor. Therefore, when the strength exceeds the defense of the Monster King, it can still cause terrible injuries to the Monster King Snake. Even, the feature of no weakness, at this time, becomes useless. Boom boom boom. Su Yu punched frantically, and suddenly bombarded the big snake's body. Press and beat the big snake abruptly. The tornado on the side also had a solemn expression, frantically urging the anti-gravity force. Directly suppress the big snake. Although Tornado's current strength is far inferior to the Monster Wong Dash, but it is only used as a supporting role. Still very effective. Directly slow down the movement of the big snake several times. He couldn't keep up with Su Yu's movements at all. Even if he wanted to imitate Su Yu's flowing water and rock-breaking fist, but because he couldn't keep up with Su Yu's speed, when Su Yu threw out the third or even fourth punch, the Monster King Dash slowly made the first punch, fist. Naturally, it was also easily dodged by Su Yu. Su Yu became more and more courageous as he fought. On the contrary, the aura of the Monster King Snake became weaker and weaker under Su Yu's continuous attack. In addition, although Su Yu's ability to break the limit has not reached 100%, it has 90%. Which has surpassed many things. Directly break through the defense of the Monster King Snake. The terrifying attack, every punch, can easily kill a dragon humiliation monster. Rao is the Monster King Dash who is a dragon, and he can't bear such an attack. The skin splits instantly. revealing scarlet flesh and blood. Suyu's eyes lit up slightly. Now that the skin is broken, then the next goal is there. The corner of Suyu's mouth split into an arc. His snow-white teeth gleamed brightly. Super alloy bazooka. Suyu let out a loud drink. On the fist, there seemed to be a force of 10,000 hectares, which burst out in an instant. It was as if something exploded in midair. Surrounded by terrifying power, it landed on the wound of the weirdo King Dashi in an instant. The places that were bloody exploded in an instant, and the thick blood exploded in an instant. Like a red flower, blooming above the sky. The body of the monster king snake was directly knocked down on the ground by Suyu's fist. Boom! A huge sound exploded. A huge deep pit was smashed out of the ground abruptly by the body of the monster king Dashi. Coupled with the terrifying gravity of the tornado, this deep pit is at least hundreds of meters in size. If you look down from above, you will find that there is a huge deep pit in the big city of Nuoda. It looks extremely discordant, even hideous. Hoo-hoo. Suyu stood in midair, panting heavily. Tornado also had a hint of a smile on his face. However, Suyu couldn't help frowning slightly. Because, above the property bar, the progress bar doesn't go up. Without the slightest reason, Suyu shot down in an instant, wrapped in terrifying power, and it was also a punch. Super alloy bazooka. Suyu likes this skill that can mobilize all his strength on his fists. Because, you can push your own power to ultimate. In terms of killing, in Suyu's opinion, it is even higher than the flowing water breaking rock fist. Boom, boom, another explosion. Originally there was a deep pit of hundreds of meters, but at this moment, he couldn't help but sink into the ground a little bit. The body of that monster king snake exploded directly. Suyu returned to the sky, topless, with a smile on his lips. Above the sky, Suyu's upper body was naked. On his body, he could vaguely see a series of shallow scars. However, these scars are not a problem at all for Suyu now. It only takes a few minutes to fully recover. After all, the physical fitness of the 6-star peak is no joke. On the ground, in the huge deep pit, the body of the monster king Dashi has been blown to pieces. Pieces of huge flesh and blood scattered around. And on the property bar that only Suyu can see. Break the progress bar that limits the ability. Impressively, after beheading the big snake, it has reached 96%. Suyu couldn't help breathing quickly. Gasping. 4% to go. Moreover, when the progress bar reached 90, Suyu could clearly find that his physical fitness had increased significantly every time he was promoted. It's just that Suyu's current physical fitness is at the peak of 6 stars, when Suyu's physical fitness is piled up to half a step of 7 stars, he starts to stop moving. Suyu pondered for a moment. It seems that we still have to increase the progress bar to 100% before we can be promoted to 7 stars. Suyu's eyes slowly looked at the huge body of Elder Centipede above the sky. At this moment, basically all the S-rank heroes were killing Elder Centipede. In Sykes Gum, and the weirdo King Orochi was beheaded by Suyu. After the black sperm and natural water were sealed by the Heroes Association with a secret device, only Elder Centipede remained among the weirdos in the Monster Association. This guy who was able to retreat completely after a battle with Blast. Although it is not the number one existence in the Weird Association, it is also extremely terrifying. Unlike Orochi who has no weaknesses, the defense of the Elder Centipede is very terrifying. Just from the Elder Centipede's ability to catch Saitama's continuous normal punches, it has already explained a lot of things. Although this guy's combat power or destructive power is not as terrifying as that of Orochi, his defensive power is definitely above that of Monster King Orochi. Even in the face of the teaming up of more than a dozen S-level heroes, Elder Centipede still didn't suffer any serious injuries. Although the decline has been revealed, it can persist for a period of time. Without the slightest hesitation, Suyu looked at the tornado beside him, smiled, and said, "Let's go together, and we'll settle the matter." As soon as the voice fell, Suyu's figure disappeared between the sky and the earth. Tornado hugged his flat chest, and the anti-gravity skirt swayed quietly. Cut, a group of useless guys, even the Elder Centipede can't deal with it. Tornado said disdainfully, but the body still flew towards Elder Centipede very honestly. After all, now only the Elder Centipede is left in the Monster Association. If the weird association can be wiped out this time, then the weird association will not be able to make any waves in the future. For the whole planet, it is very good. Facing the huge elder centipede, all S-class heroes come out together. A series of terrifying and fierce attacks landed on the body of elder centipede in an instant. The artillery fire roared, and the circle suddenly appeared. Swordsmanship is superb. Su Yu's eyes, Sharingan's frantic rotation. Copy. Su Yu looked in the direction of the atomic warrior. Atomic slash. A pitch-black blade appeared in Su Yu's hand. Magic saber thousand blades. Su Yu learned the atomic samurai's swordsmanship movements, but they can't be said to be similar, only exactly the same. The super copying ability was activated by Su Yu in an instant. Atomic slash. Su Yu's blade fell down in an instant. Wrapped with terrifying power, it swung out instantly. Forcibly put it on the hard carapace of the elder centipede. Clang. The collision of the blade and the carapace made a crisp sound. However, under the blessing of Su Yu's power after opening the Jingmun, it is combined with Su Yu's magic knife thousand blades. Ultimate's killing will explode directly. Forcibly cut the elder centipede's carapace into cracks. In the crack, the scarlet blood can still be seen. Blood splattered everywhere. Sway the earth. Effective. Su Yu's face couldn't help shaking, and he imitated the atomic warrior's movements again, and kept swaying ultimate killing blades one after another. The atomic warrior at the side watched Su Yu's movements and couldn't help but froze for a moment. But immediately, the atomic warrior also found out, and along with himself, Su Yu seemed to be also stunned. This kid, are you imitating me? Atomic samurai smiled. Good guy, I want to see if you can keep up with my speed. The atomic samurai immediately worked hard, sword lights flickered one after another, and along with the sharpness, they exploded in an instant. The speed is as fast as that of lightning. But Su Yu didn't feel the slightest stagnation, and instead began to become smoother. And on the property bar that only Su Yu can see. Suddenly and quietly, there is an extra skill. Atomic slash. Su Yu's eyes lit up slightly. On the progress bar of the ability to break the limit, there are 2 more points on the progress bar. 98%. Learning the hero's skills can also increase the progress bar. Wasn't it because he learned Bangu's fist of flowing water and rocks that he crushed the meteorite with one punch back then, so he crushed the meteorite? At that time, Su Yu learned flowing water breaking rock fist. From a 5-star warrior, he was promoted to a 6-star warrior, thus saving the entire Z city. This time, after learning the atomic slash of the atomic warrior, a progress bar of 990 points was also added. The 98% progress bar is also very scary. Only 2 points away from breaking through to 7 stars. At that time, the trip to the One-Punch Forbidden Land will be completely over. Su Yu suppressed the excitement in his heart, and immediately looked at the elder centipede in front of him. At this moment, the huge elder centipede was already covered in scars. Under the attack of more than a dozen S-level heroes, no matter how strong the defense of the elder centipede is, it is somewhat unbearable. However, at this moment, a white light suddenly flashed out. After that white flash, elder centipede's huge body instantly split open. Su Yu and the other S-level heroes couldn't help but froze for a moment. What's the situation? The elder centipede, who was extremely fierce just now, fell directly after a flash of white light. Su Yu frowned, and suddenly, as if thinking of something, Su Yu suddenly looked up at the sky. Where, at an unknown time, an extremely huge spaceship suddenly appeared. The spacecraft covered the sky and the sun, as if covering the entire sun's light. And that ray of white light suddenly appeared from the spaceship. Su Yu's complexion began to become serious. If I remember correctly, the inside should be porous. With a smile. What is that? Everyone couldn't help but look towards the sky. All I saw was an extremely huge spaceship appearing above the sky. The overall color of the spaceship is purple. The purple halo seemed to be full of oppression. Let many S-level heroes. I couldn't help but feel that there seemed to be waves of energy from all around, constantly pressing towards them. Packed with terrifying power, the entire City A was plunged into panic. What is it in the sky? Why is it so big? Could it be a dragon-level monster? No, even a dragon-level monster probably doesn't have such a powerful fluctuation. In the entire City A, quite a few people fell into endless panic. The huge spaceship directly covered up the brilliance of the entire sun. The entire city of A seemed to have fallen into the night, filled with a horrible sense of oppression. Some ordinary people, even in such a sense of oppression, began to feel their breathing become depressed. Where are the heroes? Why didn't you see the heroes? Some people fell into a panic and couldn't help kneeling on the ground, shaking all over. Could it be that the end of the world is coming? This is not an alien, is it? Earth, it's over. Almost everywhere in City A, one could hear the moaning of some desperate people. And in the headquarters of the Heroes Association, a group of men in black looked at all this with extremely ugly faces. And the middle-aged man who summoned the S-class hero before, holding the crumpled piece of paper tightly in his hand. On the note was Shiba Bawa's prophecy. Earth is bad. The middle-aged man's face was extremely ugly. He couldn't help lowering his head, glanced at the note in his hand, and murmured, "Master Shibabawa, is this what you want to say?" In the blue screen in front of the middle-aged man, many S-class heroes appeared out of nowhere, and their faces also had unbelievable expressions. Apparently, after the Monster Association's attack, the sudden arrival of the spaceship made these S-rank heroes all grim. Above the sky, a huge spaceship docked quietly among the clouds. Countless heroes are staring at this behemoth. This spaceship alone can make them feel an extremely terrifying breath. What is this thing? Genos watched all this in surprise. The white glow just now seems to have come from that spaceship. That attack, even the old man, is a little frightened. With his hands behind his back, Bangu stared at the extremely huge spaceship with his cloudy eyes. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. He was relatively close to Elder Centipede just now. It is even more able to clearly feel the terrifying killing contained in that ray of white light. If the target of that ray of white light is him, he will definitely die under that ray of white light. Flash's eyes narrowed slightly. The speed of that white light was even faster than him. There are vaguely 5 times the speed of sound, or even 6 times the speed of sound. Rao is the fastest among the S-level heroes, and his mouth is a little dry. Flash's eyes gradually fell on Suyu. I don't know your speed. Compared with the speed of that white light just now, who is faster? Long Wan hugged his flat chest, the expression on his face disappeared. Instead, it was a dignified look. In a shadowy position, a middle-aged man with eyes and a remote control in his hand. It is the body of the Metal Knight. A light flickered in his glasses. This aura is the legendary God-level monster. Suddenly, the Metal Knight's gaze became hot. God-level weirdo, I don't know if my trick will work for you. Gia. Metal Knight smiled strangely. Saitama, who was standing on the ground, looked curiously at the 10 spaceships. With a harmless smile on his face. Oh, aliens. A trace of interest suddenly appeared on Saitama's face. I don't know how much power I can bear to withstand a few punches from me. Saitama's eyes twinkled slightly. However, Saitama seemed to have thought of something and looked at Suyu. Forget it, let's leave it to this kid, otherwise someone will trouble me in the future, so I just let this kid take them all away. Saitama smiled faintly, and in that extremely huge spaceship, slowly out came a huge monster. The monster's head seems to have several. The expressions on several faces are different. He stepped into the void, and with every step he took, there was extremely terrifying energy bursting out from that person's body. Vibrate the surrounding air. This is Earth. The surging sound of the monster exploded, like a thunder roaring, releasing a huge sound wave. Suyu stood quietly among the many S-class heroes, looking at the monster in front of him. Others may not know it, but Suyu can know it. Meruza Garudo. One of the top 3 combatants of the Cosmic Dark Matter Pirates. It has the level of a dragon-level monster. At the same time, it is also the first weirdo that Poros entered the Earth. His strength is unfathomable. After fighting for 100 years, no one can find his weakness. But Suyu, who has a punch memory, is very aware of this guy's weakness. Those are his 5 heads. Each head of Meruza Garudo represents one of his hearts. When all the heads are broken, it is the time for this person to fall. Suyu's face was extremely calm. At this moment, Meruza Garudo took a step slowly. Earth, that's all there is to it. Such trash. Unexpectedly, Li Haojiao are some of the most powerful people on this planet. There was extremely strong disdain in Maruzagarudo's voice. Hearing this, many S-level heroes couldn't help but change their expressions slightly. As an S-class hero, he was originally standing at the most peak level in the earth, but he was insulted like this. It's just an insult to them. However, before many heroes could open their mouths, Maruzagarudo opened his mouth again. At the command of the captain, come to Zinshenger and wait. The powerful voice was like an oven, suddenly exploding. The sound waves stirred up a series of storms, which spread like ripples. Agitated in the void, suddenly, an icy voice sounded from among the many S-class heroes. You stole my progress points. All I saw was a young man wearing a broken white combat uniform, walking out slowly. With a bare upper body, yellow arcs are constantly jumping. It's you who stole my progress points. Suyu stood up slowly, his upper body was naked. It seems that there are one after another yellow arcs, which are constantly jumping. Although the body looks a little thin. But the terrifying power released from Suyu's body still made Maruzagarudo squint his eyes slightly. Are you the most powerful person in this star? Out of the 5 heads of Maruzagarudo, beams of light burst out. The body began to tremble uncontrollably. Seems to be excited. It seemed to be expecting something. It seems that the captain has found me a good job. Maruzagarudo twisted his body, and crackling sounds came from his bones. It's as crisp as popping beans. You got me excited. Maruzagarudo grinned grimly. Immediately, an extremely terrifying force burst out from Maruzagarudo's body, and this force was even only half a step behind the monster king snake. Even surpassed Elder Centipede, as expected of the members of the Dark Matter Pirates. The strength is pretty good. Suyu sighed slightly. Immediately, Suyu's eyes became sharper. But, is that why you stole my progress points? Suyu let out a loud cry, and the violent physical power in his whole body exploded in an instant. The power of chi and blood seemed to form streams of red air, wrapping around Suyu's body. Like scarlet dragons, releasing terrifying power. This power makes me so excited. Among the 5 heads of Maruzagarudo, all of them were shining with fiery light. The body of the whole person instantly grew a little bit. Behind him, a pair of flesh wings gradually appeared. The fleshy wings flapped against the void, creating gusts of wind. The terrifying power released even more oppressed the surrounding void, and there were bursts of abnormal noises. Many S-level heroes looked at Maruzagarudo in front of them and couldn't help but become more dignified. This power is even more terrifying than Elder Centipede. On Bangu's forehead, a drop of cold sweat began to flow down, dripping on the ground. Where did this guy come from? Bangurao is used to seeing a lot of weird people, but this is the first time he has seen a weird person like Maruzagarudo. Could it really come from outer space? Master Shibabawa's prophecy, could it be about them? Bangu's old voice sounded slowly. Many S-level heroes couldn't help but change their colors slightly. Is it Lord Shibabawa's prophecy? Looking at Maruzagarudo in front of him, Tornado sneered. So what about aliens? Just kill them. And just as the sound of the tornado fell, a yellow lightning burst out instantly. The speed of ultimate even surpassed the speed of the previous white light. Even Maruzagarudo, who is a dragon-level monster, couldn't help but hold his breath. Because he couldn't catch Suyu's speed at all. The speed of the yellow lightning seems to have exceeded 6 times the speed of sound. When the progress bar soared to 96%. Suyu was already a half-step 7-star, and he could be called a half-step little master. Coupled with the power of Jingmun, Sunning even directly reached the half-step 8-star level. Half-step master. When Suyu was only a 7-star combat power, his speed was already 5 times the speed of sound, and when he reached the half-step 8-star combat power, his speed naturally increased. Directly beyond 6 times the speed of sound. In his hand, 1,000 blades of the magic knife emerged. The fragments, under Suyu's control, directly turned into a sharp and ferocious chain, slapping Maruzagarudo's body. Bloodstains were abruptly left on Maruzagarudo's body. Go away. Maruzagarudo let out an angry roar, and punched out, bombarding the 1,000 blades of the demon saber, knocking down the fragments directly. But immediately after, other fragments condensed together, frantically beating Maruzagarudo. Ho 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 ho. Maruzagarudo roared, and Suyu's continuous attacks made Meruza Galudo extremely angry. Immediately, the hands twisted directly, turning into a ferocious and sharp tentacles. Thrust out suddenly, the surrounding void seemed to be faintly distorted. Under this blow, the space has changed. But there was still no expression on Suyu's face. Instead, it outlined an arc. Dare to steal my progress points, you really want to die. Suyu murmured. The magic knife thousand blades disappeared at some point. Instead, there was a faint blue energy floating above Suyu's fist. Accompanied by breath of thunder, crazy punch. Boom boom boom. Every time a fist hits Meruza Garudo's body, there are bursts of terrifying sounds, like the roar of artillery fire. In just a few seconds, Suyu has punched hundreds of times in a row. Moreover, every punch is the attack of flowing water breaking rock fist. How terrifying is the hundreds of times of flowing water and rock breaking punches. I'm afraid, even Bangu, who is the founder of flowing water breaking rock fist, has never imagined it. Boom boom boom. The extremely dense fists fell, and the huge body of Meruza Garudo was smashed into the ground abruptly. Just like the previous weirdo King Dash, he bluntly did not have the slightest history of resistance. In the hands of Suyu, who is already half an 8-star, Meruza Garudo, who is only at the peak of a 7-star, is no match at all. Even if he used all his strength, he still didn't have any power to parry. He was directly knocked out to death. Suyu suddenly jumped towards the sky, and then, with the shadow of gravity, his whole body abruptly smashed towards the deep pit where Meruza Garudo was. Super Alloy Bazooka. There seemed to be flames jumping above Suyu's fist. This time, it's breath of fire. Raging flames covered Suyu's fist, and the high temperature of ultimate seemed to burn and distort the entire space. Blazing. The flames are burning, and the boxing field is fierce. Boom. In just a split second, Meruza Garudo's body instantly exploded into pieces of flesh. Suyu stood up unsteadily, and looked at Meruza Garudo, who had turned into a piece of meat, with disdain. Dog thing, let you grab Lousy's progress points. Dog, let you grab Lousy's progress points. Suyu smiled dismissively, her long hair swaying gently. Pooh. Suyu spat on Meruza Garudo's body. But at this moment, those many S-class heroes have been blinded by Suyu's madness. This guy Suyu, what is he doing? Jonin couldn't help shaking on Bangu's old face. Is it so cruel? The eyes of Super Alloy Blacklight are shining. This is the body that a man should have. Suyu is awesome. Flash's eyes also couldn't help staring. Such speed is terrifying. You are indeed a genius warrior. At this moment, Flash completely admired Suyu's speed. He also officially admitted that he is not as good as Suyu. There is no way, Suyu's speed is really too fast. In Janos's orange pupils, there was a light shining. He stared at Suyu's thin body with shining eyes. As expected of senior brother Suyu, you actually have such great power. This power, when will I be able to have it? Geno sighed in admiration. There was a look of envy in his eyes. On the resolute face of the atomic warrior, there was even a hint of surprise. This newcomer, it seems that I am still blind. The atomic warrior smiled lightly, and the blade in his hand was gently slung over his body. At this moment, he seemed very relaxed. And in a corner, the body of the Metal Knight's body couldn't help but tremble. As expected of a genius warrior, only the data of such a person can be worthy of my research. If I can get all the data on Suyu, I can even create a half-step god-level monster robot. The Metal Knight's eyes were filled with brilliance. A passion for research. However, I really want to know what is the progress point that Suyu said. Such a sentence resounded from someone's mouth. Immediately, all the S-level heroes present couldn't help but froze for a moment. Yes, what is the progress point Suyu mentioned? It seems that I have never heard of this thing. Could it be that this is what senior brother Subao can become stronger? Genos couldn't help cheering up. The eyes are filled with orange light. When this time is over, I must find a doctor to add a progress point to my body. Genos thought to himself. The Metal Knight looked deeply at the sky. His thin body showed a fanatical smile on his face. Progress, is this the reason why you are so talented? Rao is a Metal Knight, so he couldn't help but be interested in the progress points that Suyu said. However, at this time, Suyu was standing quietly above the sky. On the attribute bar that only Suyu can see, the progress bar of breaking the limit ability has reached 100% impressively. Along with the increase of the progress bar, a surge of majestic energy swept out of Suyu's body. Surrounded by terrifying fluctuations, it burst out from Suyu's body. Boom! The energy fluctuations in Suyu's body seemed to have turned into a huge oven, releasing hot fluctuations. The surrounding void couldn't help but become distorted. The distortion of this space is completely caused by the uncontrollable escaping energy that Suyu broke through just now. It's all about the energy that escapes. If Suyu's real strength had reached an extremely terrifying level. Suyu, is this a breakthrough? Bangu couldn't help squinting his eyes, put his hands behind his back, and stared at Suyu quietly. There was even a trace of ripples on the old face. Suyu, who has not yet broken through, is very terrifying, and can even cooperate with the tornado to kill such a terrifying existence as the Monster King Snake. If they broke through, wouldn't they be able to kill the Monster King Snake by themselves? Atomic Warrior said lightly, "This sun has the potential to surpass blasting." As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. Blasting. That is the #1 existence among all S-class heroes. Even the weirdo Wong Dash and Elder Centipede are not opponents of Blast, and it is before Blast disappears. What kind of strength the current blasting has reached, no one can imagine. And from the mouth of the Atomic Warrior, Suyu actually has the potential to surpass blasting. Although everyone was a little dissatisfied, especially Flash. After all, even Flash just walked out of the ninja village created by Blast. But thinking of Suyu's terrifying speed of improvement, it is not so difficult to realize what the Atomic Warrior said. And when everyone was silent, Su Bao walked towards the purple spaceship above the sky step by step through the void. What does Suyu want to do? Tongdi bit the lollipop and said curiously. Saitama, who was at one place, just quietly looked at Suyu's back with a smile on his lips. Suyu-kun, goodbye. Everyone was stunned by Suyu's move. He wouldn't be trying to break into that alien spaceship directly. It's too reckless. I don't know what kind of level the existence in this spaceship is. Why are you so reckless? At this moment, Bangu couldn't help but say. But seeing Suyu's smaller and smaller figure, he fell silent. All the heroes present couldn't do this move. And Suyu looked at the huge spaceship above the sky with extremely calm eyes. In fact, when his progress bar reached 100%, he could leave directly, but Suyu chose not to leave. After finally waiting for Poros to appear on the stage, if he doesn't fight Poros. Suyu punched, but it was really meaningless. Poros, that's 10 very powerful bosses in one punch. Even has the ability of god-level disasters. Suyu really wants to know if the current self is still the opponent of Boros. Suyu walked towards the purple spaceship step by step. Suddenly, the door of the spaceship was opened. Suyu saw clearly the deployment inside the spaceship. There is an extremely huge space. And in the deepest part of that space, there is a throne, standing there quietly. And on which throne, there is a figure standing quietly. Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly, and his complexion became serious. Because the person in front of him is indeed Boros, who has a god-level disaster. Righteous. On which purple throne, Poros sat there quietly. Eyes narrowed slightly. Poros, who has only one eye, sits quietly on the purple throne. But even Poros sat there quietly. They all released an extremely terrifying sense of oppression. It seemed that the surrounding space began to distort along with Poros's terrifying sense of oppression. Suyu's breathing couldn't help but become rapid. The person in front of me is the first person recognized by Saitama. Even Saitama is a man who can only be defeated with a serious punch. It is also one of the few guys who can withstand Saitama's continuous ordinary punches without dying. Such a guy has really reached the level of a god-level disaster. Suddenly, Poros's one eye snapped open. Immediately, there seemed to be a sense of oppression coming from all directions sweeping out suddenly, oppressing Suyu. Suyu suddenly felt that he seemed to be rejected by this world. 8 inner gates, King Gate. Immediately, Suyu's strength was raised to half-step 8 stars. The extremely excellent physical fitness helped Suyu resist the oppression from Boros. Suyu's eyes became serious. According to their own division, A god-level disaster is an existence above 8 stars. Even, there is a level that can reach 9 stars. However, Poros and Suyu are quite clear. Although it is extremely terrifying, its strength definitely cannot reach 9 stars. After all, when it comes to 9 stars, it is an extraordinary existence. It has completely broken free from the limit that human beings can achieve. Even in Suyu's real world, the existence of 9 stars is a powerhouse that overwhelms the world. In the real world, the reason why human beings can build many cities under the threat of fierce beasts is entirely because of the presence of 9-star powerhouses. Poros, at most, is at the level of 8 stars. Since it is an 8-star, then I have hope to defeat the opponent. Suyu took a deep breath, and immediately, his eyes became extremely sharp. In his hand, the magic knife with thousands of blades slowly emerged, piece by piece, floating around Suyu. It's like turning into a piece of black armor. With a sharp edge, it swept out. Humanity. Poros crossed his legs and looked at Suyu quietly, as if a king was facing his courtiers. Those careless movements, between raising hands and feet, released a terrifying energy zone. Are you the most powerful person among the stars? What a letdown. A faint voice sounded, and Suyu could hear a trace of anger in Poros' voice. Suyu is very clear that Poros came to the earth because of prophecy, which said that there is a very powerful existence on the earth. It's just that the prophecy was about Saitama, not about himself. Suyu smiled lightly. I'm not the most powerful person in this star, but... Suyu suddenly raised his head, his gaze sharp. You want to challenge that one, but you are not qualified. With a sonorous and powerful sound, Tianzi's palace exploded. Like a bolt from the blue, it swept out. Suyu's words are not wrong. The existence of Saitama is just a bug. Saitama is a man who has broken all the restrictions. I am afraid that in this plane, there is no one who can match Saitama. Even if there is, it is just a case of giving a few more punches. Poros' breathing stopped suddenly. The body remained motionless. But Suyu could clearly feel that the pressure around him became stronger. Even if I rely on Jingmun to advance to the half-step 8-star level, it is still not enough. At this time, Poros stood up quietly, looking at Suyu with one eye. Congratulations, you have successfully inspired me. Poros walked step by step, and with every step he took, there was violent energy permeating from Poros' body. In order to reward you, after tearing you apart, I will destroy this star and let all the creatures of the star be buried with you. Suddenly, Poros' body shot out. The speed was so fast that even Suyu's eyes couldn't catch it. It can only be seen, after images of one after another, sweeping out. In just a short breath, Poros had already appeared in front of Suyu. Breath of thunder. Yellow arcs jumped on Suyu's body. Immediately, Suyu also moved 0. However, compared with Poros, it still seems a bit inferior. Boom boom boom. A series of muffled sounds exploded in the entire palace. That was the sound of physical combat. In just a few seconds, both sides have launched hundreds of attacks. However, in the hands of Poros, who has the strength of 8 stars, Yinsho still fell into a decline. It was only for a moment that Poros punched the flesh, and on the surface of Suyu's body, it was already possible to see that the flesh and blood had become blurred. Even, through the fuzzy flesh and blood, you can still see the dense white bones inside. Terrible. There was no expression on Poros' face, he just said lightly. If you only have this strength, you are a joke in front of me. Suyu heard such words, even though he was still being attacked by Poros, his body was bruised and purple, even with Naruto's healing power, he couldn't keep up. But Suyu still couldn't help laughing. If I only have this ability, then it is impossible for me to come. Poros frowned slightly. What do you want to say? Do not know why. Suyu's words made Poros feel a little uncomfortable. Suddenly, Poros' pupils moved slightly, and his body suddenly retreated. And just when Poros retreated suddenly, he heard a faint voice. 8 inner gates formation, shock gates. Suddenly, a violent 1.1 hurricane suddenly rolled up. Terrifying power of chi and blood began to emerge on the surface of Suyu. The terrifying energy continuously tears the surrounding air apart. Even evaporate. Boom. There was a roar, and I saw that Suyu's body became flushed with time. An extremely powerful breath suddenly burst out from Suyu's body. In an instant, Suyu's combat power directly broke through the half-step 8-star level, abruptly reaching the 8-star level. At this moment, Poros' eyes couldn't help shaking. Immediately, a fanatical aura appeared. That's right, it's this kind of power. Only with this kind of power, I have to fight with all my strength. In the distance, Suyu stood quietly with a smile on his face. Yeah, I'll let you taste the power of the 7th gate. Yeah, I want you to take a good look, the 7th gate is amazing. Suyu suddenly raised his head, a sharp light burst out from Suyu's eyes. Wrapped with sharpness, there seemed to be a sharp blade hidden in Suyu's eyes. Immediately, with Suyu as the center, terrifying waves of air swept directly around. The air waves seemed to be able to tear everything apart, erupting crazily. The entire ground of the palace was torn apart with hideous cracks. It was like being cut by an extremely sharp knife. On the ground, there were all traces of that terrifying storm tearing apart. The one-eyed Poros looked more and more excited. That's right, it must be such a Lawang. Poros' eyes became extremely excited. Only such power can excite me. In this way, I can unleash the power to my heart's content. Poros grinned. The armor on his body began to fall off piece by piece. Landing on the ground, the blunt made a crisp sound. After the armor fell, a more powerful force was released from Poros' body. Compared with before, the power is even better. This is the normal state of Poros. Poros stuck out his tongue, gently hiding his lips. You know, the me at this time is the most normal time for me. The me just now has been suppressing my strength. Poros came step by step. After taking off his armor, the muscles on Poros' body were like lumps of hard lumps. It reveals a sense of explosive power. However, Suyu just looked at Poros indifferently. Suyu, who has watched the plot of One Punch, obviously knows the power of Poros very well. However, Suyu is not very clear about how powerful Poros is in this normal state. Because, in the plot, Poros was overthrown by Saitama before he displayed such power. It can be said that it skipped such a form and directly reached the final form. In this regard, Suyu is also quite interested. Suyu really wanted to know, compared with Poros and himself in the state of 7th gate, who is better. That being the case, Suyu's knees were slightly bent, and his swollen skin seemed to have been burned by flames. Then burst out. The speed has directly reached the level of 8 times the speed of sound. Compared with the previous half-step 8-star, Suyu's physical fitness, even speed, has improved by many times, and he has reached the state of 8 times the speed of sound abruptly. Shish! The figure exploded, like bolts of lightning, jumping in Nuoda's palace in an instant. Poros' tongue lightly licked his lips. It also shot out in bursts, but its speed was only slightly inferior to Suyu's. Two extremely terrifying figures kept jumping in the palace. For every jump, Poros and Suyu have clashed countless times. The speed of their punches is really too fast. It's almost to the point where even an S-rank hero is hard to see with the naked eye. The storms caused by the confrontation between the two continuously destroyed every part of the palace. However, Poros didn't care about all of this. What he cares about is only Suyu's strength. He spent a full 20 years in order to come to Earth and find a suitable opponent for him. It can be said that Poros is an out-and-out martial idiot. And now, he faced Suyu. The strength of Suyu made the militants in Poros's body alive instantly. It was as if the blood in the whole body began to boil. With each punch, the excitement on Poros' face became more intense. Yes, that's it. Poros smiled maniacally. Hard work, boy. Otherwise, your head will be blown off by me. Poros was extremely excited, like a complete lunatic. Suyu quietly stared at Poros in front of him. The attacks in his hands erupted in an instant. Faint blue energy covered Suyu's fist. Flowing water breaking rock fist. The skill that belongs to Bangu, at this moment, under the use of Suyu, directly surpasses the creator of Bangu. The toughness is born in the gentle boxing method, which adds a lot of killing power. Boom boom boom. Fist to the flesh. The two people who were completely contending with physical strength collided crazily together. Every punch of the two seems to be able to easily kill a dragon-level monster. This is the power of 8 stars. Even a scary weirdo like the Weirdo King Snake is nothing more than a half-step 8-star. There is an insurmountable gap between 7 stars and 8 stars. This gap is even bigger than the gap between 6 stars and 7 stars. If the battle between the two was placed in City A, it could even easily destroy the city. That is, in the spaceship of Poros, otherwise, the entire city of A does not know how many places will be destroyed in the battle between the two. It is even more terrifying than a dragon-level disaster. Boom! Another muffled sound exploded, and the bodies of the two suddenly retreated. It's just that Suyu took 5 steps back, while Poros took a full 10 steps back. From this alone, it can be seen that even Poros in normal state is somewhat inferior to Suyu after opening the shock door. However, the more this happened, the more excited Poros' face became. In that one eye, there seemed to be a series of blood-red lines, covering the entire pupil of Poros. It looked extremely hideous. Yes, that's the way it is. I'm so excited. Poros kept laughing wildly. His face was hideous and distorted. Suyu panted heavily and narrowed his eyes slightly. Suddenly, Suyu jumped directly into the air. Around Suyu, there seemed to be a white air current, which began to emerge bit by bit. Accompanied by the emergence of the white air current, a violent energy was released in an instant. Roar! Indistinctly, it seemed that the sound of a tiger howling could be heard emerging from behind Suyu. Suddenly, Suyu punched Poros, who was standing there. Terrifying energy bloomed in an instant. Day Tiger. When the 8 inner gates formation is opened to the shock gate, it can be used as a physical technique. Day Tiger. Concentrate the strength of your whole body at one point. Burn the surrounding air. This point is somewhat similar to the super alloy rocket launcher, except that the power of the Day Tiger is much stronger than that of the super alloy rocket launcher. In an instant, the white fist light swallowed Poros. The white fist, like a fierce tiger, swallowed Poros' body forcefully in an instant. You should know this trick. In Hokage, Lord Guy killed Kisame directly. Relying on this trick, Lord Guy directly surpassed the limit of cage level. Behold, the terror in it. Boom! The terrifying power, in an instant, directly shot the entire ground of the palace. Even the entire spaceship began to shake. In City A, more than a dozen S-rank heroes stared at the slightly wobbly spaceship above the sky. Bangu couldn't help exclaiming, "What a terrifying power, the power that can shake such a spaceship. Could it be that there are 2 god-level monsters fighting inside?" When I said this sentence, I found something was wrong. You know, Suyu entered the spaceship. Could it be that such a terrifying battle was caused by the battle between Suyu and the weirdo in the spaceship? Hiss. Bangu couldn't help but gasped at the thought that came to him. If so, then there is only one word to describe it. So scary. Even a woman as arrogant as Longwan couldn't help casting a dignified look. Such power, even if the tornado is let go, may not be able to limit it. On the side, Saitama on the ground looked at the spaceship quietly, with a harmless smile on his face. You really deserve to be Mr. Suyu. In the spaceship, Poros' body was swallowed by the terrifying power of the Day Tiger. The white power covered Suyu's eyes. Suyu couldn't help standing on the ground again, panting heavily. Opening the shocking door, the damage to the body is very terrifying, plus there is also the damage caused by the faint tiger. Even Suyu couldn't bear it for a while. But with breathing, Naruto's physique is fully recovering the injuries in Suyu's body. Some wounds are gradually recovering. Suyu stared ahead. Although the strength of the Day Tiger is very strong, but Suyu does not think that only relying on the Day Tiger can defeat Polo. You know, even if it was Saitama's continuous ordinary punches, Poros would take it down abruptly. Such a terrifying physique. If the Day Tiger could kill him, then he wouldn't be called Poros. Sure enough, a scarlet light flashed out from the white energy. Then, I saw Poros slowly coming out from inside. At this moment, Poros's face became more ferocious, and the part of his body that was injured by the Day Tiger just now recovered in an instant. Become reconciled as before. All I saw was a faint light began to flicker on Poros' body. It's like a stream of energy is overflowing. And when Suyu saw this faint light of energy on Poros' body, his complexion, at this moment, became serious to the ultimate. Finally, it's here, Suyu whispered softly. Poros in this state, but only Saitama's serious punch can solve the guy. Poros' eyes were burning. The body began to tremble uncontrollably. This trembling is a trembling of excitement. Human boy, do you know? I haven't encountered an existence that can make me use this state for decades. In decades, you are the first. Poros' voice was hoarse. However, from Poros' voice, one can feel Poros' extremely excited state. I call this state, meteor burst state. Even I am unwilling to use such a state, because in this state, my lifespan will be greatly reduced. Poros said, in the one eye, there is a light shining. However, it's worth it to meet an opponent like you. Poros walked slowly. In order to commemorate you, after killing you, I will also destroy the entire planet. Poros' body began to be filled with purple. A series of black lines, like some evil energy, filled Poros' body. Just the terrifying sense of oppression brought by this body caused Suyu's skin to break inch by inch. Blood exploded along the cracks, dripping on the ground. Poros' complexion began to become extremely excited. In an instant, the figure of Poros disappeared directly in place. In Suyu's pupils, he only saw the slight flicker of purple light, and he didn't even have time to react. It was bombarded by a powerful force on his abdomen. The powerful force made Suyu feel as if his internal organs had been destroyed. In the stomach, it was like overwhelming the river and the sea. He fell heavily to the ground. Intense pain filled Suyu's brain. Chichao even began to overflow with blood. A punch is just the power of a punch. He even beat Suyu directly without any power to fight back. This is the most powerful state of Poros. Meteor burst status. The figure of Poros reappeared in the palace, and he walked towards Suyu slowly, with a hint of displeasure on his face. I thought, how powerful you can be, but I didn't expect that you can't even stand my punch. Too weak. Poros' voice became indifferent, seeming to be disdainful. Just like that proud dragon, unwilling to look at the ants in front of him. Suyu's snow-white teeth were directly stained red by the bright red blood. Suyu stood up unsteadily. Scarlet blood was all over his face. Like a blood man, Suyu smiled. Suyu's eyes became extremely bright at this moment. It seems that just the power of the seventh gate is not enough. Oh, Poros frowned slightly, looking at Li Chen in front of him. Cough 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 Li Hao Hao, since that's the case. Suyu coughed, and a stream of blood was coughed out by Suyu directly. Suddenly, the surrounding aura changed drastically. What I saw was that Suyu's body began to emit red steam produced by the evaporation of blood, and it seemed that even the surrounding temperature became boiling. Poros stared at Suyu's body firmly, his eyes became wild again. Is there any whole card? Yes, it's interesting like this. Poros laughed, laughing extremely maniacally. And Suyu's body slowly began to sway. Suddenly, Suyu raised his head, a violent red storm, as if forming a series of red tornadoes, tearing everything around. Even the entire palace was torn apart by this red tornado. Accompanied by Suyu's soft voice, the entire palace, at this moment, was directly turned into ashes. 8 inner gates 8th gate, the gate of death is open. 8 inner gates formation, 8th gate, the gate of death is open. Rumble. The moment Suyu's voice resounded, extremely terrifying red tornadoes swept out around him. The tornado is surrounded by extremely powerful fluctuations. The entire palace was crushed into fine powder, floating in midair. Even the entire spaceship seemed to be shattered little by little under the terrifying power of Suyu's activation of the 8th gate. Boom, accompanied by bursts of roaring roars. Suddenly, that huge spaceship exploded abruptly. The many S-class heroes in City A finally saw clearly what was going on in the spaceship at this moment. The red Suyu stood quietly between the sky and the earth. Just relying on the storm rolled up by physical strength, it seems that it can easily kill a dragon-level monster. On the opposite side of Suyu, there was that purple Poros. The overall appearance is purple, with strands of black lines engraved on Poros' body. Everyone looked at the two figures and couldn't help trembling slightly. What a terrifying power! Is this the terrifying power possessed by a god-level monster? Bangu's old face kept shaking. In the cloudy eyes, there seems to be a ray of light bursting out. The other heroes also looked at the two people in front of them with extremely heavy expressions. This is the first time they have seen a god-level monster above a dragon-level monster. At this time, the driving knight couldn't help but look at the robot controlled by the metal knight beside him, and said, "Didn't you say that you once had a backhand, which was reserved for god-level weirdos?" Looking at it now, do you think your backhand is the opponent of a god-level weirdo? The Metal Knight in the distance was silent for a while, but after the silence, his eyes became extremely hot again. Uncertain. Just 3 words can reflect a trace of unwillingness in Metal Knight's heart. But Metal Knight's eyes were extremely hot. If I can collect the data of real god-level monsters, I can really create a weapon that can obliterate god-level monsters. Everyone disagrees. That's a god-level weirdo. Even Tornado, who ranks second among S-level heroes, is not an opponent. Metal Knight, how could it be possible to create such a weapon? If he had such a weapon, would the Heroes Association be afraid of god-level monsters? However, Suyu is also really good. He can even fight with god-level weirdos. Atomic Warrior couldn't help but sigh in admiration. At this time, everyone noticed the red Suyu above the sky. Poros' eyes were filled with excitement. However, this excited look, no matter how you look at it, is a bit crazy. Gia, human beings, you made me excited. That's right, that's what I want. I spent 20 years in vain to come to Earth. You're starting to interest me. Poros's hoarse voice sounded like a crazy and paranoid man. At this moment, the blood in Suyu's body seemed to be burning. 8 gates of 8 inner gates brought extremely terrifying power, but at the same time, it also placed an extremely powerful load on Suyu's body. Even Suyu, who has already been promoted to 7 stars, still couldn't bear it when facing the destruction of his body by the Gate of Death. Suyu reckoned that the time he could maintain the 8 gate was not much, at most it was a stick of incense, and if the time of this stick of incense was exceeded, his body would be left with completely irrecoverable injuries. If it is just to challenge Poros, then the loss outweighs the gain. After a stick of incense, no matter whether he wins or loses, Suyu will choose to release the status of 8 gate. And in this stick of incense, Suyu's figure, Shunja shot out AJ. The speed abruptly reached 10 times the speed of sound. The speed was so fast, the distance between the two was hundreds of meters, not even a second, and Suyu appeared directly. Surrounding him, bursts of storms rolled up, as if they were about to tear Poros's skin apart. An excited smile appeared on Poros' face. That's right, that's it. Poros laughed wildly, and at the same time, kept pumping his fists. With Suyu's flowing water breaking rock fist, they continued to bombard. Boom boom boom. Every time the two of them fight, it seems that the surrounding space will be faintly shattered. The hideous cracks spread like spider webs. The space was shattered by the strength of the two. Suyu narrowed his eyes slightly, and spit out a mouthful of white air from his mouth. That's caused by the CO2 breathed out being evaporated by the ultimate's temperature. Day Tiger. A fierce tiger roared out instantly. The white tiger is completely formed by the condensed strength of Suyu's physical body. With the opening of the Gate of Death, the power of the Day Tiger became stronger. At the same time, the strength of the Day Tiger also became more terrifying. Roar. The tiger roared out, swallowing Poros abruptly. Everyone couldn't help being slightly shocked. Is this a win? The Day Tiger unleashed terrifying power, crushing Poros' body in an instant. But at the moment of shattering, Poros' body recovered again. How is it possible? Such a terrifying recovery ability, even I can't do it. The zombie man couldn't help shouting. You know, the zombie man is immortal. And the resilience of the zombie man is also unable to repair his broken body in such a short period of time. However, Yinbao was not surprised at all. If Poros, who is a god-level disaster, can be defeated by him so easily, that would be really ridiculous. On Poros's one-eyed eye, scarlet bloodshot threads were wrapped around the one-eyed eye like ribbons. Gia, interesting. It made me have to use that trick. With the sound of Poros' voice, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying energy around Poros, which began to condense. The surrounding space began to twist and rotate. It seemed to be directly pulled by a force and swallowed into it. Suyu's face froze slightly. Is that the trick? In that case, Suyu's body suddenly jumped out. At the same time, there is a terrifying force under his feet, burning like a red flame. Crash Star Energy Cannon. Poros roared, and suddenly, a terrifying beam of light charged towards Suyu with the power to destroy everything. And Suyu also fell with 1 foot. Evening phenomenon. Sunset. Suyu landed with 1 foot, and immediately above his fist, there was a white steam-like thing, which burst out in an instant. 1 speed. Suyu roared loudly, and the terrifying fist light directly collided with the collapsing star energy cannon. The extremely terrifying energy exploded in an instant. A mushroom cloud slowly bloomed from the sky. With the wave that can destroy everything, it swept out in an instant. A terrifying storm swept across suddenly. Faced with such terrifying fluctuations, many S-level heroes couldn't help but change slightly. Bangu and the Atomic Warrior reacted the fastest, only to hear the Atomic Warrior shout, "Hurry up, block these storms, or the whole city will be affected by the power." After that, I saw the Atomic Warrior suddenly swinging his katana. Atomic slash. With one blow, a strong storm was cut off directly. At this time, many heroes reacted. The strength of Suyu and Poros has already surpassed the dragon level, even though the disturbance caused by the battle between the two is enough to easily surpass the dragon level disaster, reaching an extremely terrifying state of destruction. If it is not stopped, I am afraid that the entire city will be destroyed. Just like the city Z that fell before. It's just that time, Suyu struck out and shattered the meteorite with one punch. But this time, if these superheroes don't react, the entire city will be reduced to ruins. Fortunately, many S-class heroes also reacted to the timely reminders of Atomic Warrior, and Bangu hastily mobilized his cultivation base, and rushed towards the terrifying storms. The tornado directly stimulated the superpowers, and around those storms, a powerful barrier was condensed, trapping many storms in it. Even those storms can easily destroy a building, but in front of the barrier of the tornado, it still looks a bit unbearable. This guy Suyu is really desperate when he fights. The zombie man couldn't help shaking his head. Looking at the sky, the scarlet-skinned young man revealed a worried expression. Suyu, you must win. The zombie man has very few friends, but in the zombie man's heart, you is definitely a friend. So zombie man doesn't want Suyu to fail. Above the sky, the power erupted by Shishong was gradually suppressed by the Bengsheng energy cannon. But Suyu didn't panic at all. If it can be suppressed only by relying on the speed of the evening phenomenon, then this skill that can destroy the entire Earth is too weak. Second speed. Suyu opened his mouth lightly. Immediately, one after another extremely terrifying fist lights exploded. Compared with the previous fist light, it is not known how many times stronger. Originally, Suyu, who had already fallen into a downward trend, forcibly reversed the downward trend with the help of the second speed. However, the dilemma remains. Poros crazily released the energy order, and there was madness in his one-eyed eyes. It's useless, my star-collapsing energy cannon can directly destroy your stars. If the power cannot surpass me, you and your stars will be turned into dust together. Poros roared ferociously. Although Suyu opened the door to death, there seemed to be bursts of pain coming from every part of his body, but it didn't affect Suyu's peaceful heart at all. Just a faint voice came out. 3 speeds. Boom boom. The fist glow roared. In an instant, the collapsing star energy cannon was directly suppressed. You know, in Hokage, Lord Guy relied on Shizhang's 3 speed to forcefully suppress Uchiha Madara. Although I don't know how powerful Yuji Poland and Poros are, but as 10 Tails Jinchuriki, Yuji Poland definitely has an 8-star combat power, and may even reach 9 stars. And even such a strong man was suppressed by the 3-speed Shishong. It can be seen how terrifying the 3-speed Shishong is. Even Poros pushed the energy in his body to ultimate. But it still didn't save the collapsing star energy cannon, which was in decline. The power of the two seems to be pulled apart bit by bit. And at this moment, a cold voice came from Poros' ear. 4 speeds. Poros' one eye widened instantly. It seemed to hear something extremely terrifying. Immediately afterwards, a young man with a bare upper body and scarlet skin appeared in front of him at some point. On the indifferent face, there seems to be a disregard for himself. The young man slowly raised his fist. Then fall. Boom. The 4-speed Shishong burst out with terrifying power, directly swallowing Poros whole. Poros even felt that his own lifespan was beginning to be weakened by this punch. The skin starts to become wrinkled. Even the power in the body seems to be passing away bit by bit under a terrifying fluctuation. How come? In Poros' one-eyed eyes, there was a trace of puzzlement. He seemed to be puzzled why his strength was suppressed by the young man in front of him. One must know that when meeting this young man for the first time, what the young man showed was that he just had 7-star fighting power. 0. But who knew that the young man became more and more brave as he fought, and even surpassed himself several times. And these thoughts began to dissipate along with the berserk power of Shishong, the 4-speed. Boom! There were bursts of roars from the entire spaceship. Under the 4-speed sunset, the entire spaceship exploded in an instant, turned into dust, and dissipated between the sky and the earth. Facing such a situation, many S-level heroes couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, it's about to end. There were smiles on many people's faces. And on a street, a bald young man quietly looked at the topless young man above the sky, with a smile on his face. It's over, Mr. Suyu, you should leave too. Saitama smiled slightly. Above the sky, Suyu took a deep breath. In fact, Shishong is not that powerful. The reason why he was able to kill Boros is entirely because he fully opened his restrictive ability. Cooperating with the power of 8 inner gates, Boros was killed directly. However, it doesn't matter, Boros is dead, and his goal has also been achieved. And on the property bar that only Suyu can see, a dialogue box pops up. A cold voice sounded in Suyu's mind. The task of the forbidden area is completed, and the countdown to return begins. The mechanical icy sound sounded, and Suyu's face showed a trace of exhaustion. Finally, I'm leaving. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.